calling this hearing of the Boston City Council's Committee on City Services and Innovation Technology to order. For the record, my name is Kenzie Bach. I'm the District 8 Councilor and the Chair of the committee. This public hearing is being recorded and live streamed at boston.gov/city-council-tv. It will be rebroadcast on Xfinity Channel 8, RCN Channel 82, Verizon Fios Channel 964. And we will be taking public testimony at the end of this hearing. So if you want to testify via Zoom, you can email Cora, CORA.Montrond, MONTROND, at boston.gov to sign up. And we just ask when you're called that you state your name and affiliation or residence and just give us a couple of minutes of comments so that we can hear from everybody. You can also send us written testimony at ccc.csit@boston.gov, ccc.csit@boston.gov. So also if you're watching this hearing after it happens, feel free to send along written testimony still. We'll likely be taking the matter up next Wednesday, so there's some time between now and then. And if you're here in the chamber, you can sign up to testify in the corner. There are some sheets right by the door, so we ask you to sign up there. Today's hearing is on docket 0402, message and order for a supplemental appropriation of $2,954,828 to cover the FY22 cost items contained within the collective bargaining agreement between the City of Boston and AFSCME. And then docket 0403, message and order to reduce the FY22 appropriation for the reserve for collective bargaining by $2,954,828 to provide funding for various departments for FY22 increases contained within the collective bargaining agreements between the City of Boston and AFSCME. And we'll be hearing in a moment from Mr. Jim Williamson, the Director of the Office of Budget Management, and Mr. Lou Mandarini, Senior Advisor to the Mayor. But before I turn to the administration panel, I just have a couple of letters from colleagues to read into the record. So first of all, from Councillor Louis Jen, Dear Committee on City Services and Innovation, I regret to inform you that I will be unable to attend the Committee on City Services and Innovation hearing on dockets 0402 and 0403, a hearing regarding collective bargaining agreements between the City of Boston and American Federation of State, County, and Municipal Employees, AFL-CIO, Council 93, AFSCME. I strongly support unions and collective bargaining for employees to negotiate the terms of employment, including pay, benefits, hours, leave, job health, and safety policies for better work-life balance. My staff will be attending, and I will thoroughly review the video, hearing minutes, and public testimony. Should you or any member of the public have any questions or concerns, please do not hesitate to reach out to my office directly at 617-635-4376 or at ruthc.louijen@boston.gov. That's ruthzee.louijeune@boston.gov. Sincerely, Ruth C. Louijen, Boston City Councilor at Large. And then from another colleague at large, Councilor Julia Mejia. I have one other letter. April 19th. Dear Madam Chair and members of the Committee on City Services and Innovation Technology, I'm writing to inform you of my absence during today's City Council hearing on docket 0402 and 03, a hearing regarding appropriations for the FY22 cost items in the collective bargaining agreement between the City and AFSCME. Due to a scheduling conflict, I am unable to attend. A representative from my staff will be listening in and following up with me. As the chair of the Committee on Labor, Workforce, and Economic Empowerment, I know firsthand how hard our municipal employees work, and I look forward to ensuring that we meet the moment in terms of collective bargaining. Sincerely, Julia Mejia, Boston City Councilor at Large. So thank you to colleagues for sending along those letters. What I'll now do is turn the floor over, as I mentioned, to Mr. Williamson and Mr. Mandarini. Let you guys give a brief presentation on this, and then we'll move to questions. So you have the floor.
Thank you, Councilor Bach. So good morning, and thank you, Councilor Bach, for inviting us here today to testify on this important matter. My name is Jim Williamson. I'm the Budget Director here, and I'm joined by Lou Mandarini, Senior Advisor to the Mayor on labor issues. We're here to offer testimony on the dockets before you today and the appropriations that they reflect, as well as to answer any questions that you might have to the best of our ability, and we'll follow up with any questions that we can't answer. Dockets 0402 and 0403 are appropriation transfer orders that covers the FY22 cost of collective bargaining agreements between the city and the AFSCME union. It totals $2,954,828. Docket 0403 reduces the central collective bargaining reserve, and docket 0402 allocates those resources to various departments that have AFSCME employees in the FY22 budget. The FY22 budget passed by City Council included a $10 million reserve to cover settlements as they occurred during FY22. So far, FY22, this is the second supplemental collective bargaining appropriation. So with the approval of this supplemental, the remaining balance of the collective bargaining reserve will be $5 million. The agreement before you today covers 3 years, from July 1, 2020 through June 30, 2023. The contract includes base wage increases of 2%, 1.5%, and 2% in October of each fiscal year of the contract term. And as I said before, we are here today to answer any questions you might have about the appropriations and or the agreement.
I don't think I have anything by way of introduction to add to that.
Great, well, thank you, and I should also note, this is Mr. Mandarini's first time appearing before us in a hearing, so thank you. Thanks for joining us, and welcome to the administration. Yeah, so I'll ask a few questions just to get things on the record. So, Jim, let me just say aloud, and you can confirm this is right, just so that people understand. Basically, because we don't know when we pass the budget exactly how much we're going to reach in the settlement, given that the contracts were still outstanding, we sort of put a placeholder number in, and that's the 10 million. Right?
Exactly.
And so we are sort of drawing down against that, which means that you don't need new revenues to fund these appropriations. What you're doing with the 2 dockets is saying we're going to take it out of this lumps that we're already holding, right?
Right, exactly.
And presumably do you expect do you think that likely that remaining 5 is likely to just roll into reserves, or do we think we should have more of these before we finish out the fiscal year?
Well, I don't want to speak on behalf of the labor team, but I would presume we would settle additional contracts between now and June 30. So.
Wonderful. And I just want to note, we've been joined by my colleague, President Ed Flynn of District 2. Councillor Flynn, I'll go to you in a moment. I'm just asking a few questions of the team. So in terms of the agreement reached, I see the salary increases, it's 2% for the first year, 1.5% for the second year, and 2% for the third year. Am I right in remembering that that's the same pattern as was set with the Senna contract?
Correct.
And can you sort of explain to folks this appropriation? What it does is it goes back and provides the pay up to this point, right? It doesn't pre-provide it for the period following after in the contract, right?
Correct. It covers the cost implications of this current fiscal year.
And can you speak to me about the one-time lump sum, the $1,000 that's included in the contract? Maybe this is a question for Mr. Mandarini. I know that that isn't something we saw in the Senate contract, so just wondering if you could speak to it at all.
I can. So the $1,000 is in recognition as we settled in the contract with the union of the fact that this is a union of disproportionately comprising workers who have worked continuously on the front lines through a very trying time over these last couple of years while they've been out of contract and expired contract status. That one-time payment is a recognition of that.
Great, thanks so much. And then I see that this continues again, in the Senate agreement, which for folks watching at home, you should just know that the city, almost all city workers, their contracts expired in June 30, 2020, with a couple of exceptions that expired in the summer of 2021. So we're in a season where almost all city workers were out of contract, and then we're starting to kind of get folks into contract. And so Senna, which I mentioned a moment ago, is the one that we've heard so far. This is the second of that kind of 30 unit set of things that need to come in. So I saw that in Senna as well, we had Juneteenth come in as an additional holiday. You've got that here as well, correct?
Correct.
Yeah. And I know, I'm saying some of the things out loud that are in these documents so that people get a chance to understand who are watching at home. All the documents are available to them. And then I guess the other provision is this provision of 2 wellness days in the calendar year for those who are fully vaccinated or submit a documented and approved medical or religious accommodation and are in compliance with submitting weekly negative COVID tests. correct?
correct?
But that's just, it's a non-precedent setting thing and it just runs through this calendar year.
Yep,
Yes.
calendar year 2022, yep.
Great, okay. Well, I'll allow Councillor Flynn to say a few words or ask any questions, and then I'll come back with any remaining ones. Councillor Flynn?
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you to the panelists for being here and for the important work that you're doing. I had a chance to review the collective bargaining recommendation agreement, and I apologize, Madam Chair, for being a few minutes late for this important meeting. So on AFSCME, how many city employees are you representing?
It's 1,040 members, actually.
Okay. From Public Works, Transportation, the Parks Department, Police, Fire, Inspectional Services.
Correct.
Do you have and I know the great work AFSCME does in Boston. I know the great work our city workers do in Boston, but can you give me a general idea of what type of job some of these workers are in, or does it vary?
It's quite a broad breadth of activities, so it could include public works laborers, it could include public works laborers, it could various different units providing different services. There are engineers in there. It's a whole host of folks.
And the majority of these workers worked during the pandemic.
Correct.
Tell me a little about what they did during the pandemic and how they showed up for work. They were essential workers, basically. They had to be there. How did that process go?
I can't speak any more highly of the folks that came in and they provided the services that were required during the pandemic. And as you say, most of these jobs are not positions you can do remotely, so they're in the field providing direct services to the city.
The recommendation compensation is 2%, 1.5%, 2% for 3 years.
Correct.
And I'm certainly going to support and vote for this. I wish it was a little higher. 1.5 to me seems a little low. Is there a reason why that's a little low?
I know you raised the same concern in the CINA contract as well, and it's, I think it's what the city found was affordable given the fiscal environment that we were operating in, and I felt it was a good wage pattern to offer and get agreement upon.
The 2 wellness days. So I'm just looking at the agreement that may be used before the end of the 2020 calendar year. Should that be extended? I'm just trying to think out loud a little bit. Just giving people enough planning time or is that what it is, 2022 at the end of the calendar year? But does it make a little bit more sense to maybe give it a little bit of an extension so you can allow some workers a little bit of in the city a little bit more flexibility?
Well, Mr. President, I would say through the process of negotiation with the union, this is what the parties agreed to, was to use them in this calendar year. The notion of carrying them over, I don't want to go too far into what we discussed, but it's not what either of the parties agreed to. So not sure how to respond, actually.
That's fine. I understand. So workers. So AFSCME workers would receive a one-time only lump sum payment of $1,000?
Yes, that's correct. And actually, if I could circle back to the question you asked a couple of questions ago about the nature of what these workers do. These are pretty much the definition of frontline workers in the city. I mean, they do the hard stuff, you know, the snow removal, the thankless, unforgiving stuff that can't be postponed. Very hard physical labor. So that one-time bonus is in recognition of the fact that they work continuously during a extraordinarily trying time over these last couple of years.
Thank you for that information. Juneteenth is added, I know we talked about this, Jim, Juneteenth is added to the contract as a recognized holiday. And certainly it is an important and recognized holiday. But you're not giving them that day to them. That's a city holiday, isn't it?
It's a holiday. I believe it's still a component of
Yeah, Mr. President, it's one of the weird ticks of labor law that even when you want to do something nice that's subject to bargaining, you have to bargain over it. So that's what this reflects. And that's actually what was reflected in the CNA agreement too.
Okay. So what are we doing on assisting workers besides the wellness days? What are we doing to assist the workers that work during the pandemic that are going to be dealing, I think all of us are, that are going to be dealing with mental health challenges following the pandemic? These workers were essential workers. They had families. They went to work. They dealt with medical challenges, I'm sure. But what are we doing short term, and what are we doing long term to help them and their families on mental health, future mental health challenges, unfortunately?
Well, Council, that's an excellent point. I think part of the FY23 budget, mental health was front and center in terms of for assistance to city employees. During the pandemic, we actually increased the size of the employee assistance staffing level. I think we added 2. Initially, we actually funded them through the CARES grant, but we've retained those positions post as we roll through the COVID process, and so that's one of the resources that's available to city employees.
Through the city wellness program. Okay. And are we providing city employees with information on how to access those services?
Yeah, one of the things that has rolled out through the HR is a new sort of HR sort of resource platform called, I think it's called Beacon, and that's precisely what the platform is about, is connecting city employees to their benefits and their resources.
So Beacon is basically the contractor that provides the services?
No, that's just a name. That's a connection
okay.
of a technology platform which city employees interact with.
Okay, and my last question, and thank you, Madam Chair, for giving me an extra couple of minutes. So how are we going to, for many workers that may not speak English as their first language, how are they going to know about what this collective bargaining states, what their rights are, what their benefits are? How are we going to effectively communicate this document to them? Many of my constituents don't speak English as a first language, as you know. But how do I know that my constituents are also receiving this basic information if they're an employee?
Well, Mr. President, I would say that partnering with the union is probably going to be the best way to do that. We can work with unions to provide that information and to help them get the resources they need to do it. It's a little think we need to be a little bit careful of sort of reaching into the membership to talk to them, and I think it's something that really needs to be done with the union, in partnership with the union. But your suggestion, your question, which we can take in the form of a suggestion, is a good one. That's something we should talk to the union about and ensure that that's being done, and that, you know, there isn't more we can do to help with that in OLR.
Yeah, thank you for that information. Madam Chair, I don't have any additional questions. Thank you for giving me an extra couple minutes.
Great, thank you so much, President Flynn. And I don't think I have really further questions. I guess the one thing I would just want to comment on and kind of put on the record today, I mean, you know, I guess a question. Am I right in thinking that AFSCME, you know, we have, you know, about 9,000 folks working for BPS, and then I think across our public safety unions, you know, we have like sort of another 4,500 folks. So I think you've sort of got 14,000 of the 18,000 city employees there, and so then you're sort of talking about a remainder of 4,000. And here with AFSCME, we're talking about 1,000 inside of that 4,000, and then obviously a certain number of inside of that 4,000 are political appointees who are not unionized. So I guess, am I right in thinking that AFSCME is the largest of our civilian unions, setting aside the teachers union? For us to
Yeah, I should know the answer to that.
On the city side it is,
on
yeah.
the city, leaving aside BPS, let's say, altogether,
Yes.
because there's, several categories. Okay, so I guess just the note that I would register is that when we were looking at sort of contract history over the last 20, 30 years, what we saw was a very substantial divergence in growth between our civilian and our sworn city employee populations. And I say that distinct from the fact that the sworn have always made more than the civilians, but that actually the incremental increases were going up much, much more significantly for our, our police and fire sworn folks than they were for our civilian unions. And I do think that over time, it really creates a very substantial equity issue and puts us in a position where we can't keep staff for a lot of those critical frontline activities that were referenced. And we know at the council, as the folks who approve an overall budget, that there is a certain zero-sumness to all of this, in the sense that we want to be paying all of our workers well and all of them enough to be a competitive workplace for these critical city services that we do. So I just wanted to register, because we're in a situation here where we're now looking to ratify a second one of these civilian contracts with the sworn contracts all still outstanding. That the council actually registered its substantial concern about that kind of growing gap in a unanimous letter in 2016, I believe it was, when we last ratified the fire contract, and that since we are not able to be at the bargaining table or be in those conversations, I think I would be remiss not to use this opportunity of talking about a settled civilian contract to say that I don't think we want to continue seeing that gap widening, just because I think we already reflect the danger and challenges that some of our sworn police and fire personnel face in terms of having much higher base salaries, right? But if we also increase them by larger amounts of money, it just becomes kind of unstable on the city side. So that's more of a comment than a question.
Well, Councillor, I can say I think equity, it's fair to say equity is going to be a guiding principle for this administration. So I take your comment, take the sentiments behind it, and I am certain we will operationalize that.
Great to hear. All right, I think I wanted to register all those. I don't have a formal letter from her, that just Councillor Erin Murphy at large also wanted to express her regrets at not being here and to say that she's fully in support of the matter and has staff watching. I think that's it from us. I'm certainly intending, so the council does not meet this Wednesday because of the holiday on Monday, but we do meet next Wednesday on the 27th, and I am intending to recommend passage of these two dockets at that time, so looking forward to that. If I get any information requests from colleagues who weren't able to make it today in the meantime, I'll send those over courtesy of IGR and just make sure we get everybody's questions answered. But Did you gentlemen have anything else to say before we conclude?
Not me, thank you.
Thanks for your time.
Thanks so much for joining us, and I'll just check, I don't see anybody here for physical public testimony. Cora, do we have any? Okay, we've no signups on virtual public testimony, but again, I will just remind members of the public that if you are watching this after the fact and you missed your opportunity to come join us in the chamber, you can send written testimony by emailing ccc.csit@boston.gov. That's ccc.csit@boston.gov. And I would just note that I expect to conclude a committee report for this docket by the end of the day on Friday. So if folks do have testimony that they want to send in, it would be great to have that sometime this week. All right, well, with that, this hearing of the Boston City Council's Committee on City Services and Innovation Technology is adjourned. Thank you all.